Hello and welcome to yet another video on Margin Notes presented by your mentor Vivek. Margin Notes, Episode 4. Commentary, not a summary, and the link to the original is in the description. Today's is by Urvil Joshi, published on Medium in May, and it opens with the most concrete failure I have seen written up in any of these articles. He built a partial refund endpoint. Standard work. He described it to the agent. Out came code that compiled and ran, and a single refund worked perfectly. Then he fired two refund requests at the same time against the same order. Both succeeded. The order total was $100. The total refunded was $150. And the interesting part is what kind of bug that was. The code was not broken in the way people mean when they complain about AI code. It was not hallucinated. It was not nonsense. It did not fail to compile. It had a check. It compared the refund amount against the order total, exactly as you would want. That check was just wrong under concurrent load. A textbook race condition. Nothing about reading that code would have told you, and the obvious test case passed. And his diagnosis is the thing I want you to sit with. The agent did not handle concurrency because he never told it to. And he never told it because the prompt and go way of working does not make you think about it. He says he spent months getting better at prompting, and the bugs did not get fewer, they got more subtle. And then this happened, and his line is, "That is the moment I stopped blaming prompts." So he built himself a workflow, reran the same task through it, and this time the concurrency question got asked before any code existed. Two simultaneous refunds. One succeeded, one was correctly rejected, $90 refunded against a $100 order. Correct behavior. And then he writes the sentence that, for me, earns the entire article. The workflow did not catch the race condition. It caught it because the workflow forced him to think about concurrency before he let the AI write anything. He says plainly, "I am the one who solved the bug. The workflow just made sure I did not skip the question." That is the most accurate description of what any of this does that I have read anywhere. Spec-driven development does not make the model smarter. It makes you ask the question you were going to skip. He also refuses the hype, which is rarer than it should be. He traces the lineage, interface definition files in the 90s, protocol buffers in 2001, test first practice from the late 90s, behavior-driven development in 2006. And he quotes a critic saying, "This is not a revolution, it is just behavior-driven development with branding." And instead of arguing, he says he is mostly right. His only defense of the branding is that it reminds people specs are supposed to be authoritative rather than advisory. That is the second author in a row on this series to argue against his own premise, and I am starting to think it is a marker of the people worth reading. Now my disagreement, and it is about the size of what he built. He built a 14-phase workflow with 11 subagents and an orchestrator on top using nothing but the tool's own primitives. It is genuinely impressive engineering, and he is careful to say it is his, not the best. But read his own account of what happened. The value came from one phase, the clarification round, which asked about concurrency before any code existed. Everything else, the design agents, the task planner, the review chain, the pull request drafting, is scaffolding around that one moment. So, the honest question a reader should ask is not how do I build 14 phases? It is what would I get from just the first one? And a caution about the before and after, which he does not claim as proof, but which will get quoted as if it were. On the second run, he already knew about the race condition. He had been burned by it. You cannot unknow that. So, this is not a controlled comparison, and it cannot be one. Take the demonstration as an illustration of the mechanism, not as evidence of the size of the effect. But I want to end this slide on credit rather than criticism, because his framing is right. He says explicitly, this is not a here is the answer post, it is a here is where I am post. And he asks readers to tell him where it can be improved. Publishing an unfinished practice honestly is worth more to the rest of us than a polished one that hides its seams. And it is how the genuinely useful writing in this field gets made. So, what do you take from it? He puts a number on the overhead, which almost nobody does. The same endpoint is about 10 minutes vibe coded and about 40 minutes through his workflow. And he is completely explicit about where each belongs. Not worth it for a one-off script, a Friday prototype, or exploring something where you do not yet know what you want. Worth it for code that handles money, code that runs in production, and code other people will have to maintain. And I want to flag something because it surprised me. That is almost exactly the boundary I landed on independently in the hands-on series, in the episode about when not to write a specification. Money, permissions, things other people depend on, things that are expensive to undo. Two people, completely different routes, the same dividing line. When that happens, it is usually because the line is real rather than because either of us is clever. So here is where I land. This is the clearest failure story I have read in this whole genre, and it contains the most honest sentence in it. The workflow does not make the model smarter. It stops you skipping the question. If you take one thing, do not take his 14 phases. Take the first one. Put a clarification round in front of your next real feature. Let it ask you the questions that are not in the ticket and see what it drags out of you. Add the rest only where something actually breaks. The full article is by Urvil Joshi on Medium. The link is in the description, and he has explicitly asked for feedback. So if you build something better, go and tell him. If you found this useful, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for patient listening, and see you in the next video. Until then, peace out.